Plain.
We're gonna have a seat.
I'd like to call this meeting of the New Ross City Council to order. Welcome all of our guests, the administration, council, and everyone. With that, we'll have a roll call.
All right, Mayor Cook,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Gross. Present. Councilman Bond.
Here.
Councilman Shammy. Councilwoman Wright.
Here.
Councilman Lindsay.
Here.
And Vice Mayor Eggleston.
Here.
With that, we'll have the invocation by Chief Trustee.
Father, Lord, we thank you for the day and all thy many blessings and many favors. We thank you for the joining of the people that came out tonight to help the city. Please let thy perfect will be done. Bless our first responders, our troops, and their families. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, I think we can dispense with the action on the minutes. Communications done. City manager, have you got anything to bring forward?
For the minutes? For why we're here tonight? Okay. Yes, well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, and all of our guests that have joined us today. Provide a quick overview, and then we do have a specific item that we need to address with council that has to do with law enforcement, which is a big player into the big conversation that we're discussing tonight. But before we get there, I've been in the position for about 3 months. One of the first things that I discovered coming into the position is just the amount of human suffering that's going on within our community. Everything from homelessness to elder care to the food crisis. Folks are really hurting. And I don't think until you're in a position like mine do you truly understand the gravity of the situation and the urgent need of addressing it. So before we get dug into other city-related projects revolving, infrastructure, new developments, I felt that it was prudent that we address, the most urgent need, which is the human that is a part of our community that's in dire need of assistance. So the hope of today is we are gravitating towards building a team in the form of a commission that would be addressing and serving and advising council and myself of, the social services needs within the community. But before we get started with that, I would like to introduce Chief Mark Lane from the Clark County Sheriff's Department and Sergeant Lehman, who are here to talk to us or with us about our addition of potentially of a sergeant that would serve as a quasi chief of police for the city of New Carlisle. So I brought this up at the previous council meeting a week ago tonight and discussed, at least my opinion on the need of a sergeant vice adding another deputy to our city. And as we got into the discussion, some of you all had some questions about exactly what would the roles and responsibilities be for this, proposed sergeant within our community. So following the meeting, again, just showing our partnership with the Clark County Sheriff's Department, they immediately was in contact with me and also was very willing to come out here and address some of those questions. So I guess I kind of set it up front. Sergeant Lehman or Chief Lane, if you all would just give us kind of an overview of, from your analytical administrative position, why a sergeant would make sense by adding another deputy into our community, and then what would that sergeant be, what duties would they be performing while they would be serving in our community?
Sure, thank you. And thank you, council, for having us out here. We do enjoy our partnership with the city of New Carlisle as well as all of our other townships and villages. Been back at the sheriff's office since January. But it's my understanding that, of course I remember I'm showing my age, but there used to be a sergeant here. There's been several sergeants here that served that administrative role. We talked about, Sergeant Butch Crowell was here, Ronnie Rude was here, John Holmes was here. There's been several in the past. And it's good to be able to bring that relationship back. Currently, Sergeant Lehman kind of serves that role. Sergeant Lehman also supervises a number of other individuals. For instance, he serves as the supervisor over all the township deputies, all the school resource officers. Some of the individuals actually work at the East District office. He supervises civilian staff there, so his plate is pretty full. It's pretty full. This position, as we spoke, it's nothing new. It's been here before. It'd be nice to be able to bring that back. It would be another liaison. We call it a buffer zone, maybe. So if you folks need something or the city manager needs something, you can always reach out to that administrative sergeant and seek information or get information from him to kind of maybe get from us. You know, we're not always readily available at the click of a finger. Sometimes you gotta call me and leave me a message because we're still doing day-to-day business or operations. But just would give you another person from a supervisory role that would actually be in your city working a set schedule, attending the council meetings and any other meetings that he would need to be at, or he or she would need to be at, as well as supervising the deputies here that's assigned to the city of New Carlisle. We wouldn't necessarily be calling him to supervise deputies on the street. We have other sergeants to do that, but he would definitely be supervising the deputies who work here in the city of New Carlisle. With that, I know it's kind of short, but I'll take some questions and we'll try to work through those. We haven't thoroughly developed the job description yet. I think we still have some time. We are working on that. We want the sergeant not only to attend meetings as need be, but we want also to touch and see his employees. So I say that from the standpoint that I don't look for this sergeant to come in and work like a 7 to 3 p.m. shift. He may work like a split shift type situation where he sees the second shift deputy, and then maybe see a little bit of the third shift deputy in passing, but we want him to be able to lay eyes on the people that he supervises. We feel that's very important, especially in the law enforcement world that we're working in nowadays. So we're still trying to develop what that looks like, okay?
Bill, you got a question?
Chief, I know you said you don't have all the details worked out yet as far as his duties or responsibilities. Overseeing the deputies is a huge start. I would like to see him also on the road. I don't think it would take sitting in an office 8 hours to handle the deputies that we have. He would have in my mind, and hopefully council would agree with me, that he would have the latitude to the flexibility, so to speak, to do what he needs to do in his shift, and overlapping first and second would be a good thing. I'm not quite sure how he'd want to work third shift, second and third, but, he would hopefully be able to figure that out and not really have to be directed to do that. And, figure out ways to keep our city safer than it is, although it is pretty safe with the deputies we have. I have nothing but high praise for our deputies and sheriff's office. You guys do an awesome job. Our deputies do a good job. They bank for it, So if we can get something along those lines, when do you think this could happen? Have you got to that point yet? And that probably questions to the manager.
Yeah, so I mean, I appreciate your feedback, Bill. Yes, definitely it's going to be a working sergeant type position. Like we do expect them to come out here and shag some calls naturally and support the deputies on the road patrol that's actually working in the city. Absolutely, 100%. I'm kind of also envisioning that. So currently when the report's taken in the city of New Carlisle, it gets sent and checked off to the East District office. And then from there, it goes to the Detective Bureau to decide whether the case needs follow-up on and who follows up on that. currently, our detectives are investigating 90% of their cases are felony cases, and if it's a misdemeanor case, it gets kicked back to the road patrol for follow-up to that particular deputy or to a township or city deputy. So I'm kind of looking at it too, that those reports are going to get turned in to the administrative supervisor here, and then he can assign them back out to the deputies for follow-up. Maybe take some of the workload off of off the detective bureau, the investigator section. So kind of looking at that as well from a mandatory management standpoint. But certainly everything is on the table, and again, we want to be able to have that good working relationship with our folks here.
In your opinion, Chief, how quick can we get this, Sergeant? I know there's things per the union that you guys have to deal with. Everybody's shaking their head, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to make any promises on that. So yeah, we do have to work with the union because, as I said, this position used to exist. So now we may have to recreate what that looks like,
Okay.
because I don't know what that position looked like back in the day. We don't have access to those documents. So we're kind of reinventing the wheel a little bit. So I would say we could probably make it happen within the next couple of months. Naturally, we just don't have a sergeant we just throw out here, so we're going to have to do a little testing phase.
Right.
And I do have a couple of companies already in the works that I'm supposed to be meeting with this week. So we'll have to, we'll probably fill this position, I would guarantee, from a sergeant that's already working. And then we'll have to test to backfill that current road slot.
Okay.
Sergeant Lima's already turned me down, Bill, so I
So, well, that's okay. He's too busy. We want somebody that's not quite so busy.
even offered to buy him some
And-
chocolate.
And, pardon me?
I
Buying
even offered to buy him
chocolate?
some chocolate.
Well, or maybe a tanning bed, who knows? But, now you made me lose my train of thought.
That's not hard to do.
So we don't get to pick our sergeant. Exactly. You can tell me no, sir. I know you want to.
As much as I'd like to say so, typically we'll go off of a seniority based.
Right.
And there probably will be some sort of test in there, maybe a little bit, or maybe just ask some questions, but no, I don't see at this point being able to set up an interview panel to invite folks in and participate in an interview. If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know you have a contract you have to go by.
Yeah, we've got a contract that
And,
we try to follow, and
Most likely, the most senior sergeant that applies will, if he passes all the other criteria, will probably get it. And I heard
Don't know
that
then.
Sergeant Lumi is not going to be applying for that position.
everything will be looked at from training aspect to attendance records. We will take into account of all the stuff, but seniority does play a big role. If you've been a supervisor here for 20 or 25 years, and you want to come to a different location, kind of feel like we owe it to those sergeants, because they dedicate a lot of time to us to be able to at least offer them a different outlook.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay?
Go ahead, Pat.
Chief Lane, I know that Clark County is far from a mega center as is New Carlisle, but what I understand what's happened in policing over the last maybe 5 years has been a significant change in management and how you deal with some people in the community, especially in the large cities. But we have a very challenging population here too, because of the large number of homeless and no opportunities for work here, that kind of thing. So I think I don't know what that term is. Do you remember what that term is they call it? It's something policing, I think it's.
Community policing?
Maybe that's it.
Yep.
So it would be modeled after that. But I really think the personality of the officer that's in that job is really critical. And what I found as a supervisor is if I was hiring for a position, if I could interview some people versus just reading a resume, it's like night and day, seeing, okay, this is a great fit, And that's why I kind of know that it's going to take the right person in that job to be successful in that job of community policing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are Since I've been back in January, we're taking I won't say we're taking a different approach, but we're trying to do a few things different. And one of those things is that our sergeants or our supervisors, even FTO people, had never been to a leadership style training before. We are sending those folks today.
Yeah.
We've already sent at least 3 sergeants that I know of I've signed off on to a leadership style role training. And in that leadership training, which is actually taught through the FBI, we talk about community-oriented policing. So yes, I totally agree, we need to be able to bring that back. Not saying it doesn't exist, but anything that we can do to improve that, absolutely, for sure. I love the community-oriented policing. It's kind of like been my background, being in the schools, but absolutely. I do love that thoughts. I love the community watch groups that we used to have. I'm truly hoping that we can bring those back here to the city. I don't think that they're still going on, but we need to have more conversation about that, for sure.
And one other thing, Chief Lane, I know this was part of our conversations, which would be a little bit unique. So there's a couple things that I'm looking to accomplish with this dialogue, because we need some decisions, because there is an investment that happens with the Sheriff's Department of just getting this thing going. So before I craft or have our law director, Mr. Jeffries, again, and pay him to propose legislation, I just want to make sure that we have the A-OK to go after the sergeant, because we probably will be looking at maybe doing an addendum to the contract, because the sergeant's contract will look different than the deputy contract, because one of the things is, and I think it makes tons of sense, especially from a community policing standpoint, of having that sergeant here for a longer period of time under contract, so then they can immerse into our community, build those relationships, have that rapport with the deputies, and give some protection to the Sheriff's Department, that we don't just test the bed and say after a year, we're going to go back to just deputies. So that's our commitment to the Sheriff's Department, that we're willing to extend our partnership. So that, I guess, just feeding into the conversation, for us to take the next step, we would need to have a consensus that a sergeant is the direction we want to go. And then we would need to work on the roles and responsibilities of what that sergeant is going to do. So then I can craft with Jake the legislation to present before you to get this onboarded. So that's a part of that waiting period, is we have a couple things that we need to accomplish.
One question, and I don't know how it is with the unions and your agreements there, but if there's a extended vacancy in our deputies here, say injury or illness or something, is there flexibility in those union contracts for the sergeant to, instead of being sitting at a desk doing desk stuff, being out covering that vacancy for us? Or is that a pretty hard, fast agreement where, hey, that's not my responsibility? They got to get a deputy in here or something rather than cover that vacancy?
Yeah, I understand. So currently, the contract reads that if a deputy's off, hurt, or injured for 10 days or more, we need to backfill that spot. Certainly something that we can look at as we develop this supervisory role, that if that sergeant's going to be off ill for some reason, yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to come up with a common ground to be able to backfill that with a sergeant. If we got, temporary fill it with a, road supervisor, for sure, Ben. Yeah, I believe that we need to definitely provide the service that you folks are paying for.
Was the question for the sergeant or for the deputy?
It would be more for the deputy,
Right.
for the sergeant to step down and cover those responsibilities in case of a vacancy or.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about
So
the
that
sergeant was
The
absent.
day-to-day is, on the road is still covered.
Kind of what the contract states right now is that if somebody's off an extended period of time past 10 days, then we are to replace that deputy anyway. So you would have somebody out here still.
Regardless
Yeah,
of.
Yep.
Okay.
yep.
Chief, if we have a sergeant, administrative sergeant out here, he's going to be working the road anyways. So I think what Mr. Bond was wanting to know, if we lose a deputy for whatever reason, illness, injury, or whatever, that sergeant still has the capability of running that road to kind of backfill for that deputy until we get another deputy to replace him. I know I said deputy a lot, but I think that's what he was getting at. Will the sergeant be on the road, which, in my opinion, the sergeant will be on the road and still do his administrative duties, however he has to do it with the flexibility to do that, correct?
Yeah, I think the term there is working sergeant. So what that,
Right.
on top of his responsibilities, we expect him to come out here and shag some calls just as much as a deputy would.
Okay.
Naturally, the call would first go to a deputy, and then, you know, if that deputy's tied up and the sergeant's the only person available, we'd like to see that sergeant at least try to make an effort to handle that call.
Right, but what I'm getting at, if a deputy is gone, gets hurt, he's on sick leave for 60 years, that sergeant will backfill that position as much as possible.
Absolutely, but I'm still going to backfill that deputy spot per.
Right, in 10 days.
Yeah, after
Yeah,
10
in
days.
10 days, right.
Yeah.
I think that's what Mr. Bond was getting at, I believe. He's nodding his head, so I think we're on the same track.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't boxed in a union agreement where it's, you know, a sergeant really can't step down and cover these. I know they're capable of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes these agreements that we're locked into kind
Right.
of hamstring us. But I'd rather just make sure that our city is covered on the needs. But if we already have, you know, after 10 days, you guys are going to
That-
send another deputy.
Absolutely, it's already in
to fill
place.
those roles, then
Yep.
that shouldn't,
Shouldn't be a problem, but yeah, it's already there in place.
if not, you could come out.
Absolutely. I would enjoy it.
The
Well,
nice thing is if you guys decide to move forward with this, we're looking to work together as a team and develop the role of the supervisor on what you guys want compared to what we can offer.
Right.
So all of us come to a mutual agreement on what that role will be.
Yeah, that'd be good.
so, if I may, sir. So the question to the manager, do you need a motion to move forward with the deputy or move forward with the talks with the sheriff's office, for the sergeant, to move forward on this, or?
Yes, after talking with Mr. Jeffries, the law director, typically what we have done is I have a letter that I sign as the city manager requesting the sheriff's office send us or, create a position for either a sergeant or a deputy. So I have that memo on my desk right now with the sergeant on there, but because there is an investment and a financial investment for the sheriff's department once I send that memo. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear, with council that if I go ahead and say, yes, let's go with the sergeant, by the time I get back with legislation and then you guys have a change of heart, then we've invested a lot of money for no reason.
Right.
So that's, I guess, the position where I'm at right now is either a consensus or a motion for a vote that you would like,
Right.
to amend the contract, which we got some gravity in the contract where it says that we can add, but it doesn't box us in, that it has to be a deputy.
Okay. I know a year or so ago, maybe somebody else will remember how long, that we authorized a sixth deputy, and that was never followed through on. Personally, I have no problem with a sergeant coming out. I think sergeant would be good as long as the chief said, a working sergeant. And I'll let Mrs. Wright comment on what she wants to, and then I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I was curious. I think for most of the citizens, it's that we want 24/7 coverage. And I do agree that having a sergeant is probably a good idea because there does need to be somebody our city supervisor can contact face-to-face and handle problems. I suggested last time that we have a part-time person to help get that 24/7 hours because that's what the folks want. They're not going to be excited to know we have a sergeant sitting at a desk, but they would be excited to know we had another officer covering our town. So if we're going to change it, let's change it. My ask would be to add that part-time person too.
So when you say part-time person, you're talking about a part-time deputy then?
Yes, a part-time deputy.
And then plus the sergeant?
Plus the sergeant, yes. That's what I'm thinking. And I know it costs more money. Everything costs more money. I agree. but what the citizens want is 24/7 coverage. And you don't want to call the sheriff or the deputies, and you're waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes for them to get here. When you've bothered to call, you're worried and you need them now. Everybody wants them right now.
I want one in my back pocket.
Exactly, and everybody does. When you want one, you want one. You don't want to wait. So to me, I think that's what citizens are concerned about.
Yeah, so I love the idea of part-time people. Unfortunately, I'm in the business of providing people a full-time job, full-time role. But I think, the way I understand it, that the current contract was maybe already set up for the 6th deputy. And that was done November, December
Yeah,
of last year.
December, I think.
So I can't go in and change our deputies' hours in July. But it's certainly something that we can look at for next year, that we might be able to move some people around to cover those empty holes or those vacancies.
But the way I understood it, we only have 5 deputies. We don't have 6.
No, so you will have 24/7 coverage, you still have 24/7 coverage. Is there gaps in between sometimes? Yes, there is. That's due to people being off sick, people taking vacations, things like that. One of the things that I've actually mentioned, just recently, because it's never been allowed, but is to offer overtime to the deputies that you have within the city to backfill some of them open slots. So instead of necessarily hiring for a part-time position that we don't have, offer the hours to the deputies that you currently have working that actually know the city, know the community with the residents, and that are willing to pick up, 4 hours here or 8 hours here. You'd be surprised. I think a lot of them would jump on that because they're all the time asking for it, but it's something that's never been allowed. So I think that would.
Does our contract not allow that then?
It's something that the city hasn't allowed. We'll just put it like that for now. Where we haven't filled that position, have never been able to post them hours. So if we're able to post them hours, then yes, we can try to pick up them little, open slots.
That would be nice.
Another thing is when Sheriff Clark came in office, his big thing is definitely wanting to make sure that everything is covered, And so even when we don't have anybody, let's say somebody's off on vacation and we find there's an open 4-hour slot. The nice thing for the community to know is that we actually have another deputy now assigned to the west end of Clark County. So it's not just one deputy that is assigned to Area 1. We actually got another deputy that's being assigned out here, out in the west end as well, so that we can always pull from them to come to the city if something needs to be covered or a call needs to be answered, things like that.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Just looking at the schedule recently with Sergeant Lehman, it's a couple hours here and a couple hours there that we're only talking about, that little gap that we might be able to fill with some overtime, if that's the direction the city manager, you folks decide to go. Certainly, that's something we can talk about later.
I mean, we're doing it this weekend, so I wasn't aware of, the prior to, and I didn't even realize that was an option, but trying to ensure that we're safe and protected over our 4th of July festivities in town. That's how I'm filling voids. And that came off of the advice of Sergeant Lehman sitting down with me and going through the schedule over the weekend to figure out exactly what we could do to maximize our coverage at the lowest cost to the taxpayer. So again, for me as a city manager watching over everything, having that strategic analysis and a clutch moment like that, it saved our city money.
Right.
So, and we were able to, I would say, beyond adequately protect our community and, a heightened time of risk when you have a lot of people between Evans Cattle event and our own event with multiple different events going on, like the community garage sale, like Foam Frenzy. All these different things have a heightened level of risk. And it would be nice to be able to have that sergeant, instead of trying to contact all 5 deputies or go through Lehman, along with all the other responsibilities he has, to ensure that they're aware of all the different events that we have where there's a heightened risk of injury or a safety issue.
At this point, I think we've talked with the finance director that we can afford the sergeant. I don't think we've got any word from the finance director that we can afford either a part-time and/or another deputy at that point. My thought, and I'm sure Bill's going to go along with this, we would go ahead and authorize the sergeant. Perhaps in the budget discussion at that point, we can talk about an additional part-time or full-time deputy if you so choose. Go ahead.
Once upon a time, 2 sheriffs ago, for those of you who don't know, it was former Sheriff Cox, and that council at that time, and I don't think anybody is here except for me, he told us that to 24/7, 365, this town would take 8 deputies to do it. If we get the sergeant, that'll theoretically give us 6 deputies. We still have work to do. And with the new developments and things coming in, the income tax levy for the 0.5% hopefully will provide enough money to where we can get to 8 deputies. And then a sergeant even becomes more valuable to us in-house instead of over on the east side someplace where he's doing, 16,000 different jobs and don't have time for us. No offense. But it sounded good on tape. So if council, and I'm going to kind of take the mayor's words here, if council don't have any more comments or anything, hearing none, Mr. Mayor, I move that we have the city manager move forward with the 6th deputy, a sergeant, working sergeant, as soon as possible within the next 2 months.
Okay, so for the city manager to move forward, fulfilling the role of the working sergeant as the 6th deputy. Do you want to say as soon as possible, within the 2 months?
Within the next 2 months.
Okay,
Don't believe that's what I said, ma'am.
within 2 months.
And not only does that put pressure on our CM, it puts pressure on the chief. But I'm sure both will be able to handle the specifications.
Okay, Councilwoman Wright,
Yes.
Councilman Lindsay.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eggleston,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Councilwoman Grow,
Yes.
Councilman Bond,
Yes.
and Councilman Shammy. 7-0.
I thank you all.
Thank you.
And we'll hang out here a little bit longer.
You're welcome to stay as long as you like, Chief. If you have to go, you know where the door's at. Just say bye, wave, and leave.
I thought there was going to be snacks. I'm a little disappointed.
Well, they'll come out right after you leave because we know you like snacks. And just so everybody knows, the chief and I know one another. We have a rapport, so that's why I razz him, but you ought to hear some of the things he says to me. We won't talk in public about. But anyways, he's a good guy. We have an awesome chief in this county. I don't think the sheriff could have picked a better chief. I honestly mean that. And we have a phenomenal sheriff, in case nobody knows that. And I don't know the sergeant that well, but I'm sure he's a sergeant, so he had to do something to get them stripes.
Back to you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I would request a motion to relax the rules of council so we can have open dialogue over the social services working session that we're about to have.
So moved.
Councilwoman Wright,
Yes.
Councilman Lindsay,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eggleston,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Councilwoman Grow,
Yes.
Councilman Bond,
Yes.
and Councilman Shammy.
All right, thank you. So thank you all for your patience in talking about this. It kind of gives you guys a little bit of an idea, the finite details of what it takes to manage a city and how, we are trying to take care of all the needs of the community members, on a day-to-day basis and trying to think outside of the box of better ways that we can do it. But I'd be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity, if you could just quickly identify yourself tell us what organization you come from, or if you're a resident, non-resident, and why you decided to come to the meeting. So, Mr. Barclay, would you like to lead us?
Yep, my name is Michael Barclay. I work for Sacred Heart Catholic Church, just over there in Westlake. We also bought a house in Westlake, which is super exciting. So we're living over there on Orth, so we're moving in here very soon. And very excited to be here.
I am Bethany Hall. I also work at Sacred Heart Church and live in the city.
My name is Eric Schmidt. I'm part of the pastoral team at the Church of the Brethren.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Bob Liebarger. I'm a pastor at Methodist Church downtown.
Would you guys along the wall, if you speak loud enough, I believe the mic can pick you up.
Oh, okay. John Kraybacher, I'm with the Community Garden.
Pat Kraybacher, New Carlisle Church of the Brethren, former member of the Charter Review Commission, and I learned a lot about the city doing that. But having gone door to door just to invite people sometimes to church, we knocked on an apartment there on Jefferson Street, and there was a woman probably in her 50s, obese, in a recliner, really naked, no clothes on. It was hot like it is today, and she had no food in the house. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and we simply don't know where all those people are. And unless somebody knocks on the door, you may never know.
Absolutely.
Janelle Zimmerman, I'm a citizen and a member of the Methodist Church.
Thank you, man.
Katie Bay, I'm Janelle's apprentice.
So we'll see you quite often at council meetings. I
That's
appreciate
why we're
it.
apprentices.
Deputy Jacob O'Brien. I've been assigned to New Carlisle for just over 2 years now.
April Lowry, City of New Carlisle, and also a resident.
I think everybody knows me.
Brian Moore, Planning Director of the City of New Carlisle.
Steve Trusty, Fire Chief of New Carlisle.
I think we addressed you. Ma'am, would you?
Julie Driscoll with Quest Youth Development.
Nikki Stefano with Family and Youth Initiatives.
I'm Kelly Dupuy. I'm a resident, and I have recently gone through homelessness, and still am. So I've recently found my voice through God, and I would love to get my dreams out there in hopes to better our community. So.
Thank you so much. And against the wall?
My name is Arthur Solomon. I'm not a resident, but we have about 24 houses in the last 6 years here in the community, and Brian asked me to be here to see how I can be able to be a part of the change we want to see.
Thank you.
Marlene Colino, I'm a resident of Medway. I work at the United Senior Services here in New Carlisle. And
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. So I gave, several of us gave testimony at the last council meeting in May of just some specific instances of human suffering that we've all encountered. Since then, we've had more incidences that have happened. And for some of those who weren't at the last meeting, I'll just give you one that happened last week. We had an elderly woman in her late 60s was evicted from Bell Manor apartment complex off Main Street. She had no place to go. She was wheelchair bound, so she made her way over to our library and slept outside under the overhang. That was when we had those bad thunderstorms that night. And in the morning, when the library folks got there, they contacted one of our deputies who served a critical role in helping triage the situation along with our library team, and was within 24 hours able to contact some family members and get her into a permanent shelter in Dayton. So again, this is every week now. And what I'm, pouring out to all of you, because I know you all have a tender heart or you want to be at this meeting, but we're funded by taxpayer dollars. And we have to be very careful about how we allot our time in our human resources and in the performance of our duties with the city. Additionally, I have union employees also who are bound under position descriptions. And our deputies, have also, they're going to go to the need where they're needed the most. But at the same time, with the more human suffering instances that happen, the more that takes them off the road doing other duties and policing within our city. So What we're hoping to accomplish tonight is to create a team. And of course, we have to have formal words because we're the government. So we're looking for a commission, ideally of 5 people that, again, bound by the handbook and the charter, have to be residents of our community. And those roles would require a president and vice president. That they would, they would have regular, meetings that would be panned out and scheduled where they would meet together, which would be open to the public and open to council to attend as well. We've recently finished a boards and commission handbook. From my understanding, council and the administration worked very hard to put this together. So there is, some guidelines and, how is the sausage made, so to speak, with this. So that's my out of the gate open solicitation to everyone who's attended the meeting that we need some help. We can't, as a government, I have no social services department, nor do I see one being created in the future. So I am at the mercy of, our town motto of neighbors helping neighbors. I am a community member. I'm a resident of this city. And, I try to serve outside of my capacity as city manager as much as humanly possible. But Mr. Brian Moore has put a lot of work into just arranging this meeting and has some ideas of how to formulate this team. And once the team is formulated, kind of what the execution of those duties and responsibilities would be for that team. So, Mr. Moore, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you all for being here tonight. Council, thank you for this opportunity as well to meet with everyone. So as we kind of put this together, this commission, as we follow the boards and commission's handbook, the first thing that we would need to do is identify the 5 residents of New Carlisle, 3 to 5 residents of New Carlisle that would want to serve on this commission. The next step for that would be you'd get a copy of the boards and commission's handbook. There's an application process. Once you've completed the application, we would set that up in front of council where you would be sworn in as a commission member. Once that swearing in takes place, the next step for everybody would be to set an organizational hearing. That would be advertised in the newspaper. We would post it on the website, of course. We would get together. We would figure out who's going to be the president, the vice president, and then a part of that too is coming up with the coordinators. So when I identify a property or a mental health issue or fire or sheriff's department identifies a need, we wanted to be able to reach out to one of those 3 coordinators so those coordinators can facilitate with the rest of this group who provide those community services. So that's kind of the logistical behind creating the committee. And of course, the committee can decide how they want to track things, how they want to do the outreach to the organizations and the resources that are available. The committee can decide all those things. And I, as the planning director, and I even spoke with Mr. Hall earlier today, I would be facilitating those meetings the same as I facilitate planning board meetings and Board of Zoning Appeal meetings. So we would have some government involvement with those as well. When you get together and you have to decide on a plan of action or, what resources we're going to use, and it's really in depth, and government needs to be involved in that because of the resources that we have as far as union workers go. Those things at that point would have to go in front of a council. And so that's kind of the logistical side of things of how we're looking to create this. So I think the next step for us, one, I'd like to see if anybody has any questions, and we'll get through that process. And then the second thing is looking for 3 to 5 residents of New Carlisle who would like to be on board of forming this committee.
How regular do you envision that committee meeting?
Probably
Or-
monthly.
Monthly?
But that's up to the committee to decide.
And that's, I'll just speak real quick. So I think I served on the last functioning board that we had in the city. It was the Charter Review Commission that Pat Kraybacher and Councilwoman Wright served on. There is a lot of autonomy that you get to make kind of your own dictations. For us, I believe for a good period of time, we met weekly because of the charge that we had on us. But you are kind of empowered. You will have a president and a vice president. You'll have some voting that'll be involved. It'll be voting for recommendations, voting for actions that you want to present to council or to myself. So it will be a self-serving board.
So what's the vision?
Sorry?
What's the vision? What is your vision for that whole thing? You know, you said, you know, is your vision to help citizens? Is it your vision to, what's your thought? You know, I don't understand what your vision is.
Well, I think my vision is I have an ethical and moral obligation to address the human suffering within my realm of responsibility. I have to analyze the resources that I have on hand and allocate those where I can, but also look out for additional resources to help address the suffering that's going on within our community. So to mitigate human suffering is the goal. Are we going to be able to eliminate it? No. But I believe that, in feeding into our values and our culture within our community, and what I've been asked to and entrusted with as the leader of the community, I have to ask for help where I feel help is needed. And this is something I believe the city needs some help on.
Well, I know this started because Second Harvest had pulled out. And that's how this whole thing, that's how it started. You know, then that brought, you know, the idea of people being hungry in the city. So that's what I kind of thought was part of that. Now, when you say human suffering, we talk about, because there's a lot of mental suffering. You know, are we qualified to handle that?
We have resources here that are qualified to handle that. We have Family and Youth Initiatives here that has resources for mental health. Quest Youth Development offers resources for mental health as well. I think our churches are all involved in that as well, to some degree. I even think you have resources for mental health, and so does the Sheriff's Department. So I think we're well qualified. What we need is that coordinator to be able to coordinate that need into the right appropriate resource. For example, your food. We would not be bringing mental health services to food. We would want to bring food needs to food. Same with Pastor Lieberger, who has the food bank. We would want to bring those resources to that situation as well. And that's what the coordinators would do. They would find those resources. You're all mostly here, and so that you can get filled through that.
I would like to add to that, if I could.
Who's first?
You can.
No, I was just going to say, when you were asking about a vision, isn't that part of what the committee would be doing, is crafting the vision?
Yes.
And the mission statement, and then bringing that to city council and saying, based on all of our work and research, this is what we see needs to be done, and then they would get to weigh in on that.
Absolutely. And so part of that, when the commission gets together for the organizational meeting, you'll want to create bylaws for that commission. Those bylaws gets approved by council. We just did this with the Board of Zoning Appeals just this past year as we reestablished the BZA. And so when we had that organizational meeting, we had bylaws readily available. They went through and said, well, we don't like this part. Let's take this out or let's add this. Once they had a final copy, we brought those bylaws to the city council and they approved those bylaws. So very similar process with this.
And we'll give you examples of bylaws, and you can shop those to your liking. But what the government will be doing is providing you with all the resources and aids that you need to accomplish the vision that the committee, along with council, who ultimately is, responsible and in control. So, there is the if Mayor Cook and the rest of council would like to have, the committee brief at a council meeting under the communications section, like if the First Harvest food truck situation comes up again, or something similar to that. That is something, instead of us sitting here spinning our wheels trying to figure things out, we can push that to the Social Services Commission, who then can triage and work that, and then come back at the next council meeting and brief council on some of our options and resources.
John, one of the things that brought this forth was the food bank, yes. They were under the misnomer that we had 2 food pantries in New Carlisle, knowing full well that one was in Park Lane. Second factor, I think Mr. Moore and his infinite wisdom saw the need when the enforcement officer went around that there were some of the people that could not afford to mow grass, clean sidewalks, and do these kind of things that his people were enforcing. So it was talked about the fact of bringing forth groups that would have the means to go out and help these people that could not afford to pay to have the lawns mowed, the sidewalks cleaned, etc. And this, to me, with the tool shed that we've got, offers great opportunity for some of the youth groups to step forward and to help out neighbors, helping neighbors.
Mr. Cook, if I could add to that a little bit. A very good situation. We did have a property that, we had a veteran, stage 4 COPD, couldn't take care of his yard. We went out, we took care of the vegetation. When I say we, it was a volunteer group that went out, took care of the vegetation. We plowed it up. We had nowhere to get rid of it. Nobody had a trailer. Called my guy Arthur Solomon over here. Within 3 hours, he had somebody lined up and ready to go to come get all that brush out of this gentleman's yard. So that's the kind of connections that we're looking for. I was able to triage this to him. He triaged out to his resources, and it got done. The gentleman just couldn't physically or financially afford to take care of his property. And so it's those kind of cases from my department that I'm going to see. But we also see things when we're dealing with that, we're able to identify if that person needs food, if there's some mental health issues going on there. Maybe they don't know what resources are in New Carlisle that are available or local. Transportation is a huge issue, right? Isn't that everybody's problem?
Yes.
It's been everybody's problem since the day before forever, right? So we're all dealing with transportation issues, but there might be somebody in your church or in your nonprofit that says, hey, you know what? I am available from noon to 2 on this day, and I can take somebody to the doctor or to the grocery store. That's a big deal. That's huge. And not one nonprofit or one church can do it all.
Right.
It's going to take this community, this village, for everybody to have their specialty to pitch in and fill those needs. So thank you, Mr. Cook. Ms. Kelly over here had a question.
Would I be able to share my vision that I got
I
from
would
God?
love to hear your story. Yes.
Okay, I used to be a business owner in New Carlisle. I used to have a flower shop uptown, across the street from Speedway. And it happened to be, every single time I would open my shop, we would get less and less and less foot traffic. And so God had called me, it was my dream to have a flower shop. And God had called me to close that shop because everything was like being stacked against me. It was getting harder and harder to overcome it. So I shut that down. And then I just had the overwhelming sense of getting in with youth development and all that stuff. And so I started serving at my church. I'm now youth leadership. And then he started working me in that. And then he started breaking down my home. I lost my house, ended up going back with ended up living in and out of my car in hotels, went back to live with my dad. My family hated it, got us evicted, and now I'm homeless again. I lived in a tent for 6 months out in Vandalia because there was no resources in Clark County. I got help from Deputy Allen and Deputy Dillon and Deputy Loney, which is our resource officers, and they helped me get my kids in a safe spot to where they didn't have to suffer with me. Through this whole process, God has put a vision in my heart for the last year and a half to have a homeless resource center. And I want to add, he works in so mysterious ways. It's like blowing my mind right now. And being here is just a testament to that. And I brought my resource center with me. He's put this vision in me the last year and a half to build this facility. I don't know how. He's been putting it in me to ask for the money that I need, and a number that keeps coming to my mind is $8.2 billion. Nobody has that. So I'm just praying and hoping for that, and I know that will come to pass. But he's also using that to get me to help my community, to come back to my community. And I would like to share my vision and my heart, and I wrote it all down today, so bear with me. My vision is a progressive homeless resource center, favoring, advocating progress, change, improvement, and reform, changing the face of homelessness. The scripture, Jesus left the 99, refers to the parable of the lost sheep in Matthew 18:12 and Luke 15:3-7. In this parable, Jesus illustrates God's love and mercy by comparing the relationship between God and humanity to a shepherd who leaves the 99 to find the one that has wandered off. This story emphasizes that God seeks out those who have strayed from their path, showing his unwavering love and willingness to forgive. I didn't know what to call it yet until he gave me the name yesterday. I'm calling it HEART, HRC, for the Homeless Resource Center. And he goes, we vow to never turn away somebody, whether that means providing immediate help and care or getting their information to the correct resources. We will not give them a resource, then make them navigate it on their own, like I've had to do so many times over. We will stick to by their sides every step of their process to get their specific needs met. The progressive moving parts of this ministry will emphasize progressive values, engage in actions for change, help to develop the progressive mindset, allow individuals to go at their own pace while also encouraging and slightly nudging them to progressively better themselves and their lives. And I wanted to also speak on, like, it's not just food that people need. It's not just homelessness that's going on. It's people in their houses about to lose their houses. It's about losing your vehicle, your main transportation to and from work. And I've had to endure that. My vehicle, I just paid all my fees that I've endured to get my license back. And the day before I went to go take my tests, my van got stolen and sold out from underneath me because the people that had allowed me to put it on their property were threatening and threatening and threatening to remove it. And I understand where they're coming from. They just didn't want it on their property anymore. But I was working so hard to get it done, to have that taken away again. But in that, God showed me that I asked for a new beginning. So, and then I wanted to touch point on that for homelessness, the biggest part is trust and safety. Knowing from experience with homelessness, it is really hard to put your trust in people and things along with feeling safe when all you can do is look over your shoulder, making sure you're able to safely rest in an area you think is safe. Too many times you are either removed from an area immediately or shortly after finding the space to comfortably relax and rest, or you get offered help that either never comes or is denied when you find the courage to speak up, to ask, or it is too little, you're stuck to beg for your basic daily needs. It is also very common to have to chase down the offered help to the ones who have offered because they either forget, then if you're like pestering them or trying to get in contact with them, they feel like you're ungrateful for it and that they cancel it altogether, or they cancel it because they no longer want to, or they can't help themselves. And then the other one is safety. Your safety, along with our people within our community, it's priority number one that we plan to enforce the highest extent. Safety is really hard because when I was living in a tent, you had to find a spot where you weren't visible, or people couldn't come off and like take your space. And I ended up finding a treed area right next to my work, and nobody knew I was there for 6 months. And when the trees let down their leaves, that's when my tent was visible. So then I started working to get me out of that situation, because God led me to different opportunities to get out of it. But as I was leading to get my stuff removed, I was trespassed because somebody had seen my stuff on the property, and I wasn't supposed to be there. So the safety of yourself, protection for yourself, and also the safety of your stuff, and the safety of not knowing if it's going to be there, not knowing if you have somewhere to sleep, not knowing if that place is not like causing problems for anybody else. So that's just what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Kelly.
It's a lot of courage, ma'am. I really appreciate you giving that testimony to us. Thank you.
I just want to say something really quick. We've been working with your kids for a couple months now. Beautiful children, smart, kind, wonderful kids.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
Your dream will come true. God will make it happen. He's already moved you in the direction he wants you. $8.2 billion is a lot of money. If you know any billionaires, you might contact them. But God will make a way for you to do what you're wanting to do. As long as he's in it, it'll happen.
Yes.
So,
Could I add just a little bit more? I'm sorry.
Please.
The Mysterious Ways was, he's been working through me for a year and a half with this. But then recently, he told me to go back to school. I'm like, I'm not sure if I can go back to school right now, especially with how much stuff my kids are in and how much like trials and stuff I've been going through. But when he says to do something, you do it. So I did it scared. I applied. I got accepted. I didn't know what major to put down because I'm all about business. Like, I loved my business. I did multiple businesses before that. Like, I'm small business minded, and so I put down business management because that's what I know. And he just changed that and erased that. And he said, no, you're going to do social work. So I changed my major to social work, and I'm like, what does this mean? And I've never been to a city council meeting until last week. And it was a nudge from Dylan, my son, who loves coming. And you had mentioned that he's your favorite constituent.
Dylan's mom, okay.
Yes.
I remember now.
Yes.
Where's he at tonight?
He's at Boy Scout camp
Okay.
in Finley. So, and he had told me last week I had no intentions of coming, but God put it in his heart to make me get here. And something during the meeting had gotten my senses heightened to listen in, like hone in on to what you were talking about. And you had mentioned social work. And I was like, okay, God, what are you doing? So, and then he had mentioned a meeting for it and invited me to come. So that's the Mysterious Works. So, and he's working.
Well, on that, Mr. Moore, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I got a couple more questions real quick. So,
Yes.
so essentially what you're looking for is you're looking for a team that you can, whenever one of these situations comes up, contact that team, and then the president or whoever is going to be able to take that call can pass that out to the appropriate coordinator, as well as for this commission to work towards systemic change. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Can I answer that?
Please.
So yes and no. I think there, in more cases than not, the resident would need to contact you.
Okay.
They have to take some personal responsibility.
Yeah, totally.
And so there are some cases where, whoever I think would identify, and there's a really special need there. And I have one of those where I would make a phone call on their behalf.
Sure.
And get them connected. But if they can use the phone, that's how we start. We want to get them to be a little proactive.
Yep.
In getting those solutions too. Because we're government, we can't, they're not going to pay me,
Yep.
right, to do all that when there's, my job description, says this. So we would encourage the residents to reach out to those coordinators. So we would have maybe some business cards made up where everybody, departments would have those cards readily available.
Yep.
We can hand them out, we can give them phone numbers and emails over the phone and connect it that way.
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Kirkpatrick?
Working on pot with disaster ministries, that's what we do. Exactly. In the very beginning, after a disaster, a group goes out and they beg, for help.
Okay.
That's exactly what they do, basically. And they ask, what's your need? When the tornadoes help in Dayton, Pat helped go door to door. What do you need? Oh, we need trees cut down. you write that down on your
Or I
list.
need toilet paper.
Or you need toilet paper. Stuff like that. I mean,
Right.
people actually have needs, in that area. And so they go door to door. A lot of, like, just talking about he's unable to cut grass. There's a lot of people that unable to cut grass, unable to put spouting up.
Right.
Things that a men's group, a men's, women's group,
Yes.
can get together, in a church. Sacred Heart would be great for it because you got a huge congregation. You got a lot of people there to pull from. Church of the Brethren, we have a men's group. Get 2 or 3 men from that group. Those things would work in our town. But anyway, to find out the needs, you'll need one person to go and see what the need is first. Then go from there. Do you need equipment? Do you need material? Do you need, then who's going to pay for that? That's the question. Who's going to be the leader?
Run the equipment.
Oh, run the equipment. You have equipment. Yeah. You need, have your equipment. So those are the things that, in disaster ministries that I'm involved with, we have people that go out ahead of time and determine that.
Gotcha.
So, Brian, I've done disaster ministries, I've done childcare for the Red Cross in the wildfires of California. And, I think flexibility is one thing that you're looking for in the group, whoever's assigned or volunteering or whatever. But the reality to think outside the box too.
Yeah.
Because the way sometimes that our city regulations are written, there is very little flexibility in those. And, it sounds like, we need to be aware of what the rules say. But maybe if somebody's unable to cut their grass, maybe there's something like, you work with them to contact family to see if they could help, or is there some kind of waiver that they could get for, a 3-month period over the summer or something like that? Because, you don't want to waste your time going and penalizing somebody for grass that's 7 inches tall.
Well,
Red says
the rule is 8 inches, but that's okay.
I knew it was somewhere around.
Yes. So in most cases, when we identify that somebody needs to mow their grass, I'll just use that as an example. Code enforcement makes a phone call first. They don't just send out the letter. We make a phone call first. We try to build that relationship. And in that conversation, you can identify those needs. Whether that person, they'll tell you, I'm sick, I have cancer, or I don't have my mower, I don't have the resources. And the very next question we ask them is, do you have an able-bodied person living in your home that could help you? And if not, do you have a family member or a friend that could help you? Once they've exhausted those resources, then we need an additional resources, which would be all of you.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
but the weather we had this spring.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Was
Yeah,
not
but-
typical, but
Right.
it was cold, we had rain.
Right.
We couldn't cut the grass.
Sure.
A lot of times.
And we've given grace because of that, and we usually do. When you have a weird grow season like we just did, we did give grace for those residents, and even able-bodied residents, not the ones that were just in needs, but just everybody at that point, because your grass is 8 inches today, then it's going to rain for the next 2 days, now it's a foot
Trust
tall.
me, we know that.
Yes.
We need help with our grass.
Oh, for sure. Me too. So yeah, we give grace when that's needed, but that's how we identify that these residents from the code enforcement position, that's how we identify their needs. Building that relationship over the phone, asking them what solutions have you tried for yourself, who do you know? And if they don't have anybody, and I'm telling you, over a period of last year, I've identified 7 properties just fit the need for what we need.
Right.
But mine's just a small piece of the pie.
Right.
We have his pie, his piece, their piece, right? Your piece, food insecurities. So there's so many different pieces and levels to this that mine's just a sliver. So when I'm saying I can identify 6 or 7 that need help with just their grass mowed or fixing their gutters or painting their shed, yes, we give grace for that. So our coordinators on this community action team or commission can coordinate that and get that taken care of. And even help maintain.
Michael made a comment about working together, but I believe that, I think what you're really dancing around the maypole is talking about partnership. It's partnership with whoever has the right information or the insights or the tools. It's partnership across the community is what you're trying to create.
Sure, and we have tools, physical tools actually to do that too, to help out with that. Somebody needs, a tiller or, a lawnmower or weed eater, we can provide those things for our tool lending center.
Yeah, I think what you're looking at is like a team of, this commission, to build just like a bunch of sub-teams, right? And to know where all those sub-teams exist. Yeah, exactly. And to continue to build that out just massively. Because, I think it's a hard sell. It's like, hey, we want you to be on call, right? On this commission to be able to sort those things out. But being able to like distribute that out way farther to Sacred Heart, the Church of the Brethren, the Methodist Church, right? Everybody. And to know like, hey, we actually have like 10 or 12 teams of people, and this set can specialize on addressing systemic change, right? And how do you actually get back on your feet? This team can dress like, they just mow lawns. That's all they do, right? They love mowing lawns. They got their brand new zero turn. They're loving it, right? And so like, that's what they do. That's what, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, exactly.
And your congregations are full of business owners.
Exactly.
Who have lawn care companies, construction companies, and they want to do pro bono stuff and give back to their communities as well. And this is an avenue for them to do that.
Exactly. Cool.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, thanks for allowing us to come and share tonight and hear some of these stories. I personally don't live here in New Carlisle. I was appointed here by the United Methodist Church a year ago, so actually 1 year ago today we were appointed here. But I do come, and a lot of what I'm hearing is, if you're familiar with Partners in Hope, an agency that's in Miami County that's based there. They have screening tools for all this kinds of stuff, and then they bring all these resources together where, as I'm hearing here, these various churches, and I think they would be very receptive to unfold what they've done and how they've set that up. Very similar as Fish in Troy, that they'll help pay utility bills, other things, and that's all done through fundraising and grants. So they have these budgets, but they have a screening tool that people that in need can apply to and things like that. So I'd be happy to network that and collaborate with that in whatever way that we can do that. But I think one of the things I wrote down that I kept hearing is community resource list. Like, who's on first, who's got this, where can we go over here, how can we do all of that, because we're all in this together. And I don't even know that everybody in here, each church probably has more to offer than probably what everybody even thinks. It's into our community. And, just to give you some examples, like AA meetings, NA meetings, support groups for people, trauma screening capabilities, the BCU, we have the food pantry that's there and how that works. They're providing the lunches now here in Smith Park, and they need volunteers for that from all over the place that help make those lunches, that they do that. We've launched a frozen meal ministry within our church. It's not just for our church, it's for our community. And we continually say, if there's a family in need that needs that, then they can take it out, or we'll bake it and take it to them, that kind of thing. And we want to get more involved where the community can come together and make those meals, where the product is donated and we make them and freeze them, and every church can have those meals to be able to give out and things like that. So I just want to be able to share that. I didn't know what to expect tonight. But we're trying to bring some more, because we're in the heart of downtown, we want to be more friendly in the downtown area to meet needs in whatever way that we can. And we want to re-energize a community worship during Heritage of Flight Festival that's happening there. But we want to offer a meal so that meal, if people don't want to come to worship, if they want to come to that meal on the Heritage of Flight Sunday, great. Then we help one family, and we want multiple churches in that community worship. We don't want it to be a Methodist worship, we want it to be a community worship. So however we can all come together and worship, that's what we want to be able to accomplish and do, and I hope we can do that. And we're bringing Vacation Bible School back, and that's open to the community. We haven't done that in about 12 years, and that's happening in August. And that's just a free event, and there's a meal served. So if there are families that just want to come for the dinner and they don't have kids, can be in VBS, that's fine. We'll feed those families. We want you to know, and I'm not here just to pitch us, because I think the Church of the Brethren, all these other churches, the Baptists, Catholics, everybody's got it all. We're all in this together, and that's what I hope that we can accomplish, so.
I think if there's nothing more than what we brought forth in these 2 meetings, it has been a culmination of ideas. Each one of us has a different philosophy and a different background. In that background and in that philosophy, you have made contacts over the years that are greatly enhanced in a meeting such as this. You bring them forth, such as this gentleman has. I think that we've got something that we need to promote and to continue going on.
I think Mr. Lindsay got a question.
You got something, Mr. Lindsay?
Yeah, turn the AC down.
Oh, sorry.
Sitting under the Thank you, sir.
I said you had to shiver. I didn't know what that meant.
So I recently went to a homesteading festival, and I went there with a vision for our city, but not just our city, but I guess anybody who wants to take it, right? And does anybody know who Joel Salatin is? So he's called Lunatic Farmer. He's actually the most famous farmer in the United States. He is working with RFK currently on agriculture. I actually got to have a conversation with him about how to make our city self-sustainable. And as crazy as he is, he thought I was nuts. I was like, I think it's possible to have a city become self-sustainable without the government's help. And I think it starts here. All right, it starts here at these kinds of conversations. It starts with neighbors helping neighbors. It starts with building resilience. And resilience has to be flexible, but it also has to be built. And so he suggested for food security, doing what the community garden's actually doing. Go you. And that is teaching people how to keep a pantry in their own home to store food, and teaching people how to can and preserve their own food.
And grow something.
Yes.
Grow something, doesn't matter what it is, potatoes or whatever. Grow
And
something.
he kind of alluded to not just the community garden taking that on, but to publicize it as a city. I don't know if that's possible or whatnot, but to publicize it as a city, have it become a city effort and free for the community, which I know the Ohio State University Extension Office does offer that for free. And I know that the community garden, John said in a previous meeting that they were talking about doing that with the OSU Extension Office, right? And bringing that in. And Joel Salatin just kind of thought that it might be of benefit if the city kind of put that on and partnered a little bit more with the community gardens resources. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I also spoke to somebody in Dayton. I can't remember what she did. She was like a social worker / therapist. And she had set up in an area where there was no RTA or anything. They partnered with Uber. That city, I forget who it was, but she was in on it, partnered with Uber to take people to the grocery and whatnot. And I didn't know if that was something we could look into or not, but I just figured that was an idea to throw out there. Because as you mentioned, transportation is a huge issue here. Yes, we have an IGA, but really, I mean, that's not enough food for a whole city. We're almost in a food desert, and people need to get to the grocery store. But there are people who cannot get food stamps. okay? There are a lot of people who can't get food stamps because they make too much, but they don't make enough for groceries and to pay all of their bills. And they also don't have enough money to put gas in their car to get to the grocery store. So I just thought that that could potentially be of benefit to us. I don't know if it would work for us. I don't know what the details are for that, but I thought it could be something that we could look into. And again, just talking about resilience. And I am, so you have a ream of paper, right? And you have each piece of paper is layered, and it creates that ream of paper. What we are doing is building resilience here. We have one paper that we are building at a time with these meetings, but not just the meetings, action being taken after the meetings. And as we build that ream of paper, it becomes more flexible. It can't be ripped, all right? Just like Karate Kid cannot break a ream of paper. He can break a brick. Bricks aren't flexible. But he cannot break a ream of paper. And I am asking you guys all to do the impossible. Let's be the first city in Ohio to become self-sustainable and by helping our neighbor.
Well, Carrie Ann, that's exactly the point I tried making with the school board and the 9 acres we have out there. We can't farm all of it, but there's great potential there on that 9-acre piece that the school board owns for doing other things like education and teaching canning and doing whatever. So he's got to see all these ideas that will make that ring, and somebody has to sort them out and make those connections. You know? One other thing we haven't mentioned is like John mentioned Resident Disaster Ministries, BDM, which goes around to Kentucky. They've been going to Kentucky now for 3 or 4 years to deal with floods and tornadoes. But the Southern Ohio District, which is where our church is, has a Helping Hands ministry that you can make an application like through the church to help. Usually it's supposed to be for members, but I think since we're such an isolated community, there might be potential from Helping Hands to come do something that's uniquely different, like patching a roof or fixing a downspout that's leaking or something like that. So there's all kinds of ideas. Carrie Ann, you're exactly right.
I actually forgot one part of the, one of my ideas is every church, I grew up in the church, okay? Every church has some sort of room that has stuff from the 80s and 90s that isn't getting used, that can be set out, and where food could be stored, canned goods. According to the USDA, so that's USDA.gov, they state that canned goods that are not dented, leaking, or rusted are good past the extension of the expiration date. All right, it will of course need rotated accordingly, but I think if every church has some way to store food and we all partner together to make that happen in case of a disaster, because I was in those tornadoes, okay, my house did not get hit, but we did not have water. Not only did we not have water, we didn't have a way to get to water. And nobody was coming and bringing us bottles of water. Thousands and thousands, maybe millions of bottles of water were being handed out, but the houses that were not hit were not being served. I don't want that to happen here. We don't have to have it happen here. We can do better. And I think this is one way. What if a tornado comes in and a couple churches get hit, but a couple don't? We have those backups. We have those reserves. We can find ways to store water in these churches. Every church has some sort of storage area that is being used for VBS stuff from the 80s. Well, maybe in the 90s and 2000s at this point, but when I was growing up, it was the 80s, because my mom was in charge of VBS and I got to help clean that stuff. But there's always a place to store food, and people can store food, in their homes, but they need to learn how to keep a pantry. These are things that we can do to help our city be self-sustainable and just serve our neighbor, but also help ourselves so that we don't need help when something happens. I'm done.
Would it be apropos, well, go ahead, Mr. Bond.
Just first off, I thank everybody for being here. Appreciate all the comments and everything and the willingness to help us in our city, but maybe to help move the ball forward here a little bit, when I look at this list of the churches we have and representatives of the different organizations, we kind of have a list that if you could get one person from your church or two people from your church, that would make our commission up. And so if you guys could take that back to your congregations and the people that you rub shoulders with and say, maybe start and say, is there somebody there that would raise their hand and say, yeah, I'd be willing to serve on that commission as a liaison for our church? And then come back in a month or whenever the next meeting is, that might help to, because it seems like the first step here is to get that commission going and peace. And so it would be nice if there was a representative from each of your churches that could be that. And then maybe think of what's a specialty need area that we could excel in, and bring a couple ideas that maybe that would be the go-to for your church and fill in that need in our community, and then it would kind of, I think, move things along a little quicker or whatever. So just a suggestion to go forward with.
I think Mr. Vaughn has just basically outlined your homework for next meeting. Would it be apropos to also on that list the things that your church or your organization could provide to this group that would be of benefit? I'm hearing a lot of things that we probably have not known about, or does not have the knowledge that these things are available. So I guess maybe if we put all of these together and we develop a booklet at that point, so that we know that when we have a certain event happen, we could go down the list and see where we're going at that point. I think this will possibly enhance and with the things that Mr. Vaughn has brought forth, we might be able to move on ahead a little bit faster than what we had hoped.
So John and I were talking over one idea here. We went to some training for farmers markets. The Troy Farmers Market just got a $25,000 grant. The one in Springfield got a $25,000 grant. We're an isolated community. We're a food desert. So we need to get one of those outdoor cooking kitchens that then when you have excess produce or excess whatever, you can process it. Or maybe you get something, I think IGA Hometown would be a great partner, because they're always getting rid of fresh produce that's a little bit on the edge, and that can be either cooked and frozen or whatever. So we need to get an outdoor kitchen, and if we wrote a proposal, I think that would get funded right away, because Springfield just got one and Troy just got one, but guess what? We're out in the middle of nowhere, so we need one of those.
And I completely agree. And it was one of the reasons why I wanted to let's just collect everybody in a room and talk about this. Because what I think, like that's a great example of what I would think a random commission meeting would be talking about in February. And this is the stuff that the commission is triaging, and it's open to the public. So everybody can be in the same place talking about one particular thing and what action steps we need to take to secure that grant, or to get that shelter, or, a new pop-up church just came into town, and, coordinating with them of, what can you bring to the table? Do you have anybody that would like to be a part of this organization? And so I think that is the homework right now is, we need to put it out there however you all would like to spread the word within your particular organizations and your churches. And then whoever feels that call, please reach out to myself, Mr. Moore, Ms. Lowry, or any of your elected officials and council representatives that are here, that are the voice of the people. That's what the 7 of them represent. And I think, I'm confident in this community. I'm confident in a lot of different areas. I wouldn't be in this position without that confidence that we will answer the call. New Carlisle always steps up when we need it, and I think this is a time that we need, a moment in history where we need to step up.
Well, I'll tell you what our church is doing, Church of the Brethren, is we're gonna do a blessing box. We're gonna, basically, I was talking with Pete Lane, you know, I guess I'm in charge of it, I didn't even know.
That happens to you a lot, Don.
Yeah, I must have missed a meeting or something. But anyway, we'll put it outside on the porch there, because that's where, one, is, you know, it's away, you know, from the sidewalk area a little bit. Also, we're gonna put a blessing box at the garden also, you know, and we're gonna probably put it on that Bayberry side, you know, where the gate is.
Mhm.
We're gonna try to put on it. My question is to you, Mr. Moore, is there any ordinance against that?
No, I just want to see your site plan. Make sure there's no zoning violations on where the location of those blessing boxes are going to be. There's going to be some setback requirements for those.
Mrs. Krabacher said something about a outdoor cooking kitchen.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it's really outdoors, but it's really can support many small businesses. So if you want to make, you know, jam for the farmer's market, you can rent the space or use the space. It's like a commercial kitchen is what it is, but it's available. And they're now funding farmer's markets.
So I don't know about all the churches in town or what they have. Does a lot of the churches, and I guess this is for you folks, do you guys have a commercial type kitchen in your facility, in your church?
No, we're wavered.
Yeah, the churches are wavered, a lot of the nonprofits are wavered.
We don't have to have a commercial kitchen. We're serving food.
Just have to have it clean.
Well, I've seen a couple of heads shaking that they did have a commercial kitchen.
Well, the
So,
Methodist church has got a great kitchen.
Right.
But however, as far as being commercial, it might.
well, it may not be classified as a
Yeah, we have
commercial,
like
but a
commercial
kitchen
grade
for,
equipment and appliances.
Right,
Like
that-
large dishwashers,
Right.
ovens.
so if the churches, and this would be up to their pastors and whoever is in charge, if the community, or to do what you're talking about, if they would make their kitchens available for that, of course, I don't know if they'd have to have, I'm sure they'd need notification, but maybe something like that could happen with the kitchens and the equipment that's already available, instead of getting something new. And I don't know where the new thing would go either.
You'd have to build. You know, Oasis Community Garden, you know, one of the nicest ones in Springfield, Terry Frederick has it. You know, he has, it cost him $25,000 for the kitchen. You know, and he got it from the Springfield Foundation. You know, the money from the Springfield Foundation.
Okay.
But then he had to build a shelter over that. And so that came from, the money came from someplace else. You know, but he has a grant writer that writes grants on a constant basis.
So, once this commission is formed, the commission can apply for grants. I mean, not necessarily like for a specific organization, but for the need of the commission. So there's across the board grants available for everything that we're trying to fulfill here. So that's something that the commission can look into. I know you suggested that, you know, you take this home and think about it, but we have needs now. I'm just being that blunt. We have needs today, yesterday, and we're gonna have them tomorrow. So we can go home and think about this for the next 2 weeks to 3 months and drag our feet, or we can ask around the room right now, who is a resident of New Carlisle who would like to serve on this commission? And if we get 3, that's a start, and then we can go back and grab some more from our churches and our organizations. So that's my next question. We have 1, 2, 3. Anybody else?
I would help, but I don't live in the city. I live in the country on Dietrich
Understood.
Jordan.
I'd like to pray about it.
Amen to that.
Okay, yeah, just,
I know.
I
Everybody's got their hands full with things too, so definitely
I
take your
really
time
wanna
if you
pray
need to,
about
but
that.
we have 3 to start with. We have 4, 5?
Krabacher's would be awesome on it.
Sure. So I have applications and I have boards and commissions handbooks here. I'll get it to the 5 of you. And you fill those out. I think at the next city council meeting, we can get it on the agenda to have them come in and be sworn in. Then we'll set our organizational meeting and go from there.
All right, do you want to set another meeting?
We'll need the applications by July 1st, so we can get them into the council pack.
All right, as you know, none of council can serve on this committee.
Correct.
Because that is part of, I guess the word is.
But you're happy to attend.
They can't, yeah, you can't serve as a board member, but much like with the Charter Review Commission, several of you were very involved as a part of that commission, as advisors and as participants.
And basically, I believe that I can say with the utmost in mind, that if you want to talk to any of our members of the council, they will be more than glad to work with you. I don't know that there's any of us that basically would refuse you, since we're all sitting up here and listening to what we're hearing. Am I correct?
What are you looking at me for? Yeah, I would concur with you, Mr. Mayor, that I believe that the 7 of us, if we're reached out to, with questions or whatever you would need from us, I think all 7 of us would be more than happy to assist. All of our phone numbers and email addresses, I believe, is on the city webpage. Everybody in this county's got my number, so just ask somebody, they'll give it to you.
Is there anything more? Go ahead.
I wasn't sure what's permissible and what wasn't, but I brought flyers if anybody would like one for the Community Vacation Bible School that'll happen in August. There's no cost, and there's a free meal involved, and then the community worship service on the Heritage of Flight weekend. So even if you just take it back to your church and ask your pastor or leadership to call me, that'd be great. I greatly appreciate that, because the more churches we can get involved with that, the better.
It would be nice, I'm just going to say from a church standpoint, and somebody that believes in the Bible, and I believe all churches preach the same Bible, although they do have doctrine and other things that they preach. And if they're preaching out of the Bible calls us to help our brethren in trouble and whatever we can do to help them, whether it's feed them, clothe them, assist them in whatever. I will take one of each of your flyers, sir. I will take it to the church I attend here in town and pass it off to the pastor, and I'll be a bug in his ear. I might be able to handle that.
Just one more thing. So the 5 that have volunteered to fill out the application, if you still want to take one with you back to your church or your organization, take one. We'll take all the applicants we can get. We'll figure all this out as we go through the applicants, and yes.
And I'm happy to give any of you my phone number. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's not listed. It's not in the yellow pages, guys.
Oh.
It's on the website, I'm sure, city
not on the
website.
website.
It isn't?
No,
With that,
you can email me.
Chris, do you want to go down the rest of the agenda?
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. City offices will be closed on July 4th for Independence Day, and that's really about it. Open for any other discussion.
With that, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a
Move to
motion
adjourn.
Second.
Councilman
Sorry to cut
Wright.
you off, sir.
Yes. Councilman Lindsay.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eggleston.
Yes.
Mayor Cook.
Yes.
Councilwoman Grove.
Yes.
Councilman Bond.
Yes.
Councilman Shammy.
Yes.